And not only is it, I mentioned this last week already, the 5th largest Jewish community in the world, also, I just learned this week, once upon a time, 4 sons were born to Ukrainian Jewish parents. 3 of them got murdered in the Holocaust by the Nazis. 1 survived. And a grandson of that sole survivor is now the democratically elected president of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky. So this is actually one of the few countries where actually Jews are actually part of the highest range of politicians, and a strong connection there, positive and negative. Also found out this week, the Babi Yar Holocaust Memorial Site in Kiev was also destroyed, and it's honored the estimated 70,000 to 100,000 people who died between 41 and 43 during the Holocaust by the Nazis. So there's a lot of mixed history there, but our hearts today and going forward are mostly with the people there today and the terrible things they're going through at this point. And Kanda, you chose a special opening song that you would like to introduce.
Yes. And there. It's been a hard week for everybody, and I have the good fortune of joining with a group of about 25 people on Sunday mornings at 8 in the morning to do Yiddish singing with a gentleman who leads it from Moldova. And he has commented that 7,000 refugees have come through and are in Moldova now from Ukraine. And I'm thinking of all of them. And he introduced me to this melody, and I transcribed it. It wasn't written down. And I gave out a sheet for those who are here, and you can see the Ukrainian colors there. And the text is very simple. It's a very simple melody, too. It says, "If I were stronger, I would tear through the street. I would cry out, peace, peace, peace." And this is going to be sung in Yiddish, and then in Hebrew, and then in English. And I invite you, those who are with me, to join me, and those who are online, to just hear these words and to live these words as we join together. Wollt ich gehabt koech, wollt ich gelaufen in die Gassen, wollt ich geschrien Scholem, 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 Scholem. Lu haya li koach, hayiti ratz barachov, hayiti zoek shalom, 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 shalom. If I were stronger, I would tear through the street. I would cry out, peace, 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 peace. Ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya la 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 la, ya die 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 die, ya die 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 die, ya lie lie ya lie 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 ya lie lie.
And also, as we're lighting Shabbat candles tonight, before we are reciting the blessing on page 2, I'd like to introduce a reading before that. When war darkens our world, let us be the bearers of light. When fists are clenched in rage, let our hands be open for the sake of peace. When injustice slams doors on the ill, the poor, the old, the stranger, let us pry the doors open. Where shelter is lacking, let us be builders. Where food and clothing are needed, let us be providers. Where knowledge is denied, let us be champions of learning. When dissent is stifled, let our voices speak out truth to power. When the earth and its creatures are threatened, let us be the guardians. In the places where no one acts like a human being, let us bring courage. Let us bring compassion. Let us bring humanity. Let us bring light.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu להדליק נר של שבת.
Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who led us with mitzvot, commanding us to kindle the light of Shabbat.
Shabbat Shalom.
Continue on page 10 with Yedid Nefesh, one of the Piyutim to welcome in Shabbat.
Yedid Nefesh av harachaman, Yedid Nefesh av harachaman, Mishoch avdecha, Yala la 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 eretzonecha, Yishtachave Yala la 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 eretzonecha, Yarot avdecha, Kemol hayal, Yishtachave ya la 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 mul hadarecha, Yishtachave ya la mul
Same page on the bottom, you find the poem Shabbat HaMalkah, the Shabbat of the Queen. And Kanta chose a very specific setting for the night he would like to tell us some more about.
So Shabbat HaMalkah was written by the Ukrainian poet Chaim Naman Bialik, who was considered the Russian-born national poet of the Jewish people. And he left for Odessa when he was 18 years old. And even though he was a secular Jew, he had tremendous nostalgia for an appreciation of the traditional Jews of his generation. And for him, the Sabbath was the essence of Judaism. He said the peace and quiet of the traditional Sabbath was a sample of the future in which he believed all Jews would live in peace. While he was still in Odessa, Bialik wrote his famous Jewish poem, this poem you're about to hear, Shabbat HaMalkah, which was then set by the great Ukrainian cantor Pinchas Minkowski. Sing along with me as you know it.
Page 10 at the bottom.
Hachama merosh ha'ilanot nistalka Bo v'netzei likrat Shabbat hamalka Hinei yoredet hakdusha barocha Ve'ima malachim tzeva shalom u'mnocha Boi, boi, ha-malka Boi, boi, ha-kala Shalom aleichem, malachei ha-shalom The sun on the treetops no longer is seen. Come gather to welcome the Sabbath, our Queen. Behold her descending, the holy, the blessed, and with her the angels of peace and of rest. Draw near, and here abide. Draw near, O Sabbath bride. Peace also to you, you angels of peace.
And to further welcome in the Shabbat bride, in addition to the Shabbat queen, both images are being used for Shabbat, both the regal aspect, but also the happy, the joyful aspects of a wedding and the bride. And for that, we turn to page 20 for Lechadodi as we join together.
Lechadodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lechadodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Shamor v'zachor b'dibor echad, Hishmi'anu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad u'shemo echad, L'shem u'tiferet v'litehila, Lechadodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lechadodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Likrat Shabbat nechun v'nelecha, Ki mekor habracha, Merosh mikedem nisucha, Sof maseh b'machshava tehila. Lechadodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lechadodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Hitoreri, kiva orech komi ori, ori shidaberi, kevod Adonai alayich nigla. Lechadodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Lechadodi likrat kala, Pnei Shabbat nekabela. Boi v'shalom ateret bala, Gam b'simcha u'v'tzola, Toch emonei am segula, boi chala, lecha dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat mekavela, lecha dodi likrat kala, penei Shabbat mekavela.
Please have a seat. You're on page 26 for the Chatzi Kaddish.
Yitkadal v'yitkadal Shemei Rabbah. V'yamad yivrach Yerotei v'yamlich malchutei v'chayechon nevyomechon uv'chayederchon Beit Yisrael bagala uvizman kariv ve'imro. Yehi Shmei Rabbah mevorach le'alam ulam me'omaya yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitbar v'yidromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitalev v'yithalal Shemei dekodeshah Barichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata toshvechata v'nechemata daviran be'ama ve'imro.
Amen. You're on page 28 for the Baruch Hu, our call to worship. Please rise as you're able. Same for folks at home. We want to face east from your location.
Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Yai la 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 la. Ai da 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 da. Ai da 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 da. Ai da 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 da. Baruchu et Adonai hamevorach. Baruch Adonai hamevorach, hamevorach le'olam va'ed. Hamevorach, hamevorach le'olam va'ed.
Page 31 on the bottom. Read together. This is an hour of change. Within it, we stand uncertain on the border of light. Shall we draw back or cross over? Where shall our hearts turn? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? This is the hour of change, and within it, we stand quietly on the border of light. What lies before us? Shall we draw back, my brother, my sister, or cross over? Baruch atah Adonai, Hamari Aravi. Page 32, we join together in Ahavat Olam.
Ahavat Olam, Beit Yisrael, Amcha Avta, Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu lemadeta banu lemadeta. Alekein Adonai Eloheinu b'shochbeinu uvkumeinu nasiach b'chukecha v'nizmach b'divrei toratcha ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד, כי הם חיינו, לאורך ימינו, ובהם נגע יומם ולילה, נגע יומם ולילה. ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים, ברוך אתה אדוני, אוהב עמו ישראל, אוהב עמו ישראל. Shema, Shema, Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem, Kevod Malchuto, Le'olam Va'ed.
Please have a seat. We are on page 36 and join together on the top in the chanting of the Ve'ahavta.
Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam בשבתך בביתך ובלכתך בדרך ובשוכבך ובקומך וקשרתם לאות על ידיך והיו לטוטפות בין עיניך וכתבתם על מזוזות ביתך ובשעריך למען תזכרו ועשיתם את כל מצוותיי והייתם קדושים לאלוהיכם. אני אדוני אלוהיכם אשר הוצאתי אתכם מארץ מצרים להיות לכם לאלוהים. אני אדוני אלוהיכם, אדוני אלוהיכם אמת.
On page 39 on the bottom, and read responsively. In a world torn by violence and pain, a world far from wholeness and peace, give us the courage to say, Adonai, there is one God in heaven and earth.
The high heavens declare your glory. May earth reveal your justice and love.
From bondage in Egypt we were delivered. At Sinai we bound ourselves to your way.
Inspired by prophets and instructed by sages, time and again we overcame oppressive forces.
Though our failings are many and our faults are great, it has been our glory to bear witness to our God, keeping alive in dark ages your vision of a world redeemed.
Let us continue to work for the day when the nations will be one and at peace. Then shall we rejoice as Israel did, singing on the shores of the sea. ya ba ba bim bim ba, ya ba ba bim bam, ya ba ba bim bim ba, ya ba ba bim bam, dai 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 dai, ya ba ba bim bam, dai 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 dai, ya ba ba bim bam, mi chamocha b'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nehedar b'kodesh, Nora tehilot, osef ele, Nora tehilot, osef ele, malechutecha, ra'u banecha, bokei hayam lifnei Moshe, u'Miriam zeli zeli, anu ve'amru, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed. Hey, ya ba ba bim bim bam, ya ba ba bim bam, ya ba ba bim bim bam, ya ba ba bim bam, dai 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 dai, ya ba ba bim bam, dai 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 dai, ya ba ba bim bam. V'nemar ki fad Adonai et Yaakov, Uge'alo mi'ad chazak mimenu, Baruch ata Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael.
For Hashkivenu, our prayer asking where we ask God for shelter of peace. It's on pages 42, 43. We're going to be doing a creative version tonight. Let there be love. It's on the left side of the page on the top. Especially asking for shelter of peace, not only over the people of Israel, but over the whole world, especially about the people affected by the war in Ukraine.
Join with us. It's the first two lines that are repeated over and over in this prayer. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and shelter be our shelter from life's storms. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu, Hashkivenu L'Shalom. Ve'hamidenu Shomreinu L'chaim, Uvros Aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu, Eloheinu Hashkivenu L'Shalom. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu, Hashkivenu and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms. Let there be love and understanding among us. Let peace and friendship be our shelter from life's storms.
Baruch atah Adonai, הפורש סוכת שלום עלינו, ועל כל עמו ישראל, ועל ירושלים, We are now turning to the next page, page 44. We're going to be joining in Vishamu on the top.
Vishamro v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ביני ובין בני ישראל עוד היא לעולם, עוד היא לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם וביום השביעי שבת וינפש שבת וינפש ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם.
About to rise on page 46 for the Amidah, standing prayer in our tradition. Folks at home, if you also want to, please rise as you're able, facing east from your location.
Adonai sifatai tiftach ufia gitehilatecha Adonai open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah. Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim v'Konei Hakol, v'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imahot, U'Mevi Geola Livnei Bneihem, Leman Shemo be'ahava. Melech Ozer u'Moshia u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Abraham ve'Ezrat Sarah. Atah Gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechaye hakol atah Rav le'Hoshia, Mashiv haruach u'morid hagashem. Mechakel chayim bechesed, Mechaye hakol berachamim rabim, Somech noflim verofei cholim, Umatir asurim, Umekayem emunato, Lishnei afar, Mirchamocha bal gevurot, O midom elach, מלך ממית ומחיה, ומצמיח ישועה, ונאמן אתה לחיות הכל. ברוך אתה אדוני מחיי הכל. אתה קדוש ושמך קדוש, וקדושים בכל יום יהללוך סלה. ברוך אתה אדוני האל הקדוש.
Please have a seat. On page 55 on the top, we read together. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment in this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. Page 56, and read together in the Hebrew for Ritzei. Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu be'amcha Yisrael, utfilatam be'hava tikabel, utehi leratzon tamid, avodat Yisrael amecha, el karov lechol koav, pnei el avadecha v'chonenu, shfoch ruchacha aleinu. ותחזינה עינינו בשובך לציון ברחמים. ברוך אתה אדוני, המחזיר שכינתו לציון. For prayer of thanksgiving, page 58. As has become our custom, think about for a moment, what is one of the things you are grateful for? A lot is going on these days, a lot of anxiety is happening, but let's also try to be grateful for the small little positive things that are also happening along all that. And if there's anybody who wants to share, folks at home, please feel free to use the chat. Maybe you kick us off. What's going on these days, Cantor?
Oh, so as I said, it's been a very challenging week. I've been listening to the news and hearing the stories. So I think I'm thankful to be able to hear and to see and to understand as much as I can what people are going through. There were all these stories interwoven of different families and those who are hiding in subways. There was a rabbi who spoke from the progressive movement in Ukraine, from the basement of his apartment complex. There were just so many stories. So I'm thankful to be able to hear them and to offer my words and my songs and my music to them on this Shabbat, as Jews all over the world are celebrating, including those in Ukraine.
Lots been going on. Totally, I've already been in touch with the congregation in Germany that I've been attending services with and been working with. This morning I actually had, well, for them it's evening, so my Shabbat starts very early these days because of the 9 hours time difference between here and Germany. And I actually led a sample service with them this morning, and it was a very nice experience. They do a quite different kind of a style, a full-blown Kabbalat Shabbat that goes on for half an hour before even hitting the Baruch Hu. So that was an interesting experience, and I got to learn a lot new melodies and tunes to be leading this congregation. And yeah, let's hope for the best, but it was a really nice experience. If there's anybody else who wants to share something that's been going on, please feel free to do so. I'm going to look around. If there's anybody, some happy things. Yes, please. Thank you for sharing. So gratitude of community being together, even while our hearts are heavy. Thank you for sharing. Somebody else? Yes, please. So just to summarize for folks who couldn't hear that, she's having trouble seeing, and she found a very helpful person at the supermarket who helped her read out some of the packages. And when she shared about her failing eyesight, she actually mentioned that that this woman's daughter was actually born without eyesight, and really was a reminder, like, for the gratitude for all the senses that we have, and to be grateful for these things that we take for granted. Somebody else? Oh, please, yes. So in summary, what I heard was, it's being grateful for the people who, despite the war and everything that's going on, they are trying to work towards peace. She's also said she's proud to actually have one of our folks, a Jewish president in the state of Ukraine, as well as some pride in all the countries who are stepping up to help support those affected by the war. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. It's been a tough week, and I don't want to call it homework, but going forward, I think it's something more for ourselves, trying to find these moments, because it can be very overpowering, all that's going on, to still remember to live, to also experience joy, and to make moments of happiness happen. We just entered into the month of the second Adar, which is the month I spoke about last month. We have the double portion this year. The month where we actually try to increase in joy, which can be very hard to impossible, but given all that's going on. But even if you think about it, Purim is coming up in, next week? 2 weeks. Oh my God. Yeah, so a lot of these events going on there, so also to try as a reminder for ourselves to also be open for these moments of happiness despite all that's going down. And on the bottom of page 58, we read the Chatima, still expressing our thanks to God. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha, u'lecha na'eh lehodot. For
the prayer of peace tonight, we sing the words on the left side of the page, on page 61, the Lo Yisagoy prayer, which says, "Nation shall not take up sword against nation, they shall never again know war." We're going to sing it in a round, and we'll start with the word shalom, and you sing that, and then you guys will continue that, and I will go on, and then we'll switch, and you'll see it's very easy, but also very powerful. So join with me. It goes like this. Shalom, shalom, and again, shalom, shalom. Do that again. Lo yisagoy el goy heret. Lo yisagoy el goy heret. Lo yamedu milchama. Lo yisagoy el goy heret. Lo yilmedu milchama. Lo yisagoy el goy heret. Lo yilmedu milchama.
Chatima on the bottom right page together.
Baruch atah Adonai,
Hamevarech et amo Yisrael, Shalom. Take a moment of silence now for the prayers of our heart. You're on pages 62, 63. Feel free to use one of the meditations there if you like. Otherwise, just take a moment for yourself, listening to your heart.
At the bottom of page 62, we sing the Oseh Shalom prayer, and we're going to add tonight the phrase Ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, which is on the third line down, and that includes all the inhabitants of the earth as we think of those in Ukraine on this Shabbat. So join with us. Oseh Shalom bimromav, Ho Yaseh Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imro, amen. Oseh Shalom bimromav, Ho Yaseh Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imro, amen. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom aleinu, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel.
Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.
And they lived happily ever after. We all are familiar with this famous line that concludes pretty much every fairy tale ever written, be it Snow White, Cinderella, or Sleeping Beauty. after long-winded trials and dangers averted, the valiant prince ultimately conquers adversity to win the heart of the beautiful princess. They get married and celebrate with a great feast to then live happily ever after. But we all have kind of come to expect these happy endings. Most stories fail to tell us what happens next. Be they the classic fairy tales of the Brothers Grimm or modern ones, courtesy of Hollywood, that reach us in the form of rom-coms, romantic comedies. One of these modern fairy tales, I'm sure many of you have seen, is the 2002 box office surprise hit, My Big Fat Greek Wedding. The movie has all the classic fairy tale elements. The lead character, ugly duckling Tula, portrayed by Greek-Canadian comedian Nia Vardalos, falls in love with a waspy Prince Charming named Ian Miller. This prince does not have a dragon to slay in this tale, but he still needs to convince his bride-to-be's Greek family of why they should let Tula marry Xeno, a non-Greek. After many trials, proving himself worthy in the eyes of his in-laws, the movie ends with the promised big fat Greek wedding celebration. So much for our standard fairy tale plot. And yet, My Big Fat Greek Wedding also tries to break with this happily ever after tradition. There actually exists a spin-off of the movie that came out about a year after its enormous success, a sitcom with the title My Big Fat Greek Life. The show picks up right after Tula and Ian's return to the US after the honeymoon in Athens. The newlyweds now have to deal with new life realities. Where will they start their new married life together? Who is in charge of household chores, such as laundry and cleaning? How to get that coveted zoning permit for the family restaurant? And of course, the ever-present question, how to get these overbearing Greek in-laws to finally respect some boundaries. Despite the many practical issues addressed in it, well, maybe that's exactly why My Big Fat Greek Life was quite short-lived. Only 7 episodes total aired before the network canceled it. Our culture seems so entrenched in the magic of happy endings that dealing with the real elements of married life gets far less appealing. In this week's Torah portion, Pikudei, the last one in the book of Exodus, our story reaches a climax as well. Over the last couple of weeks, we read all about the intricate details that went into the construction of the Mishkan, the portable tabernacle, in order to provide God with a place to dwell in the midst of the children of Israel. This week, Moses finally completes the building of the Mishkan. God and the Israelites have a housewarming party, and it is smoking. Vayichas ha'anan et ohel moed, uchvot Adonai maleh et hamishkan. Then the cloud covered the tent of meeting, and the presence of Adonai filled the tabernacle. The ancient rabbis often likened the relationship between God and Israel to that of a husband or wife, or two married partners. Viewed from this angle, we can see the whole book of Exodus as the love story between God and the Israelites. The two separated lovers have to overcome many trials to finally reunite with one another. They endure years of slavery in Egypt, escape from their oppressors in a rushed exodus, cross the Sea of Reeds, until they finally get to enter into a marriage covenant at Mount Sinai. This love story, that is, the book of Exodus, thus ends with the newlyweds, God and the Israelites, starting to cohabit with one another. In a fairy tale or Hollywood movie, this would have been the cue to trigger the happy ending. and to fade the movie out into the credits. But instead, our story continues next week with Leviticus, that section of the Torah most dreaded by most contemporary readers, as it deals mainly with priestly instructions for animal sacrifices, clean and unclean foods and items, ritual purity, with some holidays thrown in for good measure. To put it mildly, were Leviticus a TV show, very likely would have been canceled a long time ago due to low ratings. Which raises the question, what is the point of Leviticus? Why do we keep all these dull instructions and details around? Unlike our modern expectations of happy endings, the Torah teaches us a quite pragmatic lesson here. While a wedding is definitely a climactic moment in people's lives, the real work begins afterwards, in married life. And as mundane and unromantic that may seem, marriage and a partnership needs to be built upon certain rules and understandings in order for it to endure the test of time. So the book of Leviticus can be pretty much seen as the house rules for God's and the Israelites' new relationship. What does the meal plan look like? The different kinds of sacrifices. How to keep the house tidy, clean and unclean items. What is the protocol in times of sickness, ritual purity? And how to make the holidays meaningful for the kids. While many of these questions are still relevant to the present day, there's one key difference between the ancient Mishkan and synagogues of today. Back in the day, God's presence was literally tangible in the tabernacle when the pillar of smoke descended on it by day or the pillar of fire by night. Today, we no longer have these obvious clues. How do we still make God's presence known in our synagogues today? As with any relationship, not every prayer, every service can be this firework of excitement so many of us are looking for. And yet, there are moments of holiness when we gather together in the synagogue, personally or virtually, to say Kaddish for a loved one, or the Misheberach, or plea for recovery of body, mind, and soul. Or think of a bar or bat mitzvah, and we come together as one big family to witness the passing of the Torah, the dor vador, from generation to generation. All these and more are moments when God's presence becomes tangible to us. We might not have the guarantee we will live happily ever after, but we know we have a place and a community with whom to share our journeys in pursuit of our own happy endings. Shabbat Shalom. For the announcement today, I'd like to invite Celia Fredkin up to the front. Shabbat Shalom.
Thanks. Thanks for the service. Purpose of ritual and all that is very. Can't hear me, is that it? Okay. Yeah, okay. The sound people, the streaming group, and the ushers. All information about upcoming events at Temple are in the order of worship, on the Shabbat Shalom email, and on the website of the Temple. If you do not see, get the information, or if you have questions about it, please do call the Temple. There are some major events coming up. In 2 weeks, March 13th, there's a Purim Carnival. And looks like March 13th, there is at Ben Roya Hall, Music of Remembrance. There will be music about the Holocaust and different Jewish experiences. And then March 16th will be Zoom Megillah, and should be fun. Sisterhood on March 22nd will be doing their third general meeting. In March 24th, there will be a speaker series, and it will be a UW professor, Lauren Poyer, I think is her name. She'll be talking about Kraken or the medieval monsters. That'll be March 24th. During this Ukrainian war, there are many opportunities to give support. The bulletin that we get on Thursday has a lot of addresses and websites if you want to help. This weekend, UPS will be doing a play. It's called Indecent, the true story of a Jewish play. Those of us who would like to help the advocates of immigrant justice in terms of providing lunches for them, please give a shout to Maddie Plummer. And there is a podcast, Rabbi Kadam and Dr. Bonnie Becker talk about Judaism and anti-Semitism. I listened to it, it was interesting. Once again, if you are in need or if you would like to help those in need, please let the temple know. Stay well, and Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. Thank you.
Shabbat Shalom.
At this point in the service, we pause to take a moment for those in need of healing of body, mind, and soul. And before we move into those of our community, I'd like to add a prayer for Ukraine, stood by Joanne Fink, that I found was really speaking beautifully to, I think, all what we're feeling today. Holy One, source of strength, war has begun and innocent people are dying. We ask your protection for Ukraine and its citizens. We pray for their safety and the security of the country and for the neighboring countries, Hungary, Poland, and Romania, among others, that have opened their borders to provide humanitarian corridors and safe passage for all those who wish to evacuate. We seek the comfort of believing that everything will be all right, even in the face of unsurmountable odds. Quiet the fears that threaten to deafen us. Grant us shlemut, the inner peace we so desperately seek. Help us remain calm and to reach out to those in need. May this horrific situation be diffused swiftly with minimal casualties. Bless our world leaders with the ability to lead together for the greater good and the wisdom to make wise decisions during this turbulent time. Bless the people of all nations with the desire, strength, and courage to create a world based on justice and filled with peace. May the words of the prophet Isaiah, "Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore," become true in our day, in this very hour. Source of goodness, shine your healing light on us, and to all thus in the Ukraine we hold in our hearts. Shelter us, shield us, show us the path to peace. May we each be inspired to use our unique gifts to usher in an era of enduring peace. And let us all say, Amen. Also, now I'd like to invite for those who want to share names of people who are thinking specifically in this community. Folks at home, feel free to use the chat function to share names. Please. also like from our community, Bert and Bunny Peters, on the loss of Bert's father Ralph and Fred Warnick. Misha Berach, our plea to God for healing, you can find on page 253 in the middle of the page. Let's join together.
May the source of strength, oh bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach imotenu mekor bracha le'avotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
We now turn to the concluding prayers of our service. First, the Aleinu, which you can find on page 282, and from there, we're going to be jumping to page 287. Please rise one more time as you're able. Folks is home as well, facing east.
Aleinu l'shabeach l'adon hakol, לתת גדולה ליוצא בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו אחד.
Please have a seat. Before we turn to those who are no longer with us, we also include in our prayers for them, of course, all those who lost their lives during times of war, particularly what's going on in Ukraine right now. First, you also think of those who in Shiva or Shloshim, first 7 or 30 days of mourning. And among them, I'd like to list Stephen Hansford, Rosa Nichiporuk, and as I mentioned, Bert's father passed away, whose name is Ralph Peters. Is there anybody else who's in a period of mourning of Shiva Shloshim? Please rise at this moment. At home as well, please. Then we extend the traditional words of consolation. Hamakom yenachem etchem, b'toch sha'ar avalei Zion v'Yerushalayim. May God console you with all who mourn in Zion and Jerusalem. Next, those who are marking the yard site, the anniversary of the death of the loved one, please rise at this moment. From our community, we commemorate the following today: Selma Branham, Harold E. Broadman, Jack Eigen, Sally Foyer, Samuel Feingold, Gregory Gollander, Morris Garland, Abe Greenman, Abram Hermanson, Sylvia Hopkins, Clyde Johnson, Gwen Carger, Carl Mangel, Wilhelm Friedrich Meyer, William Mazoff, Robert Murmelstein, Rose Motola, Gertrude Reisberg, Rabbi Richard Rosenthal, Jerome Samuel Schwartz, Joseph Simon, Frederick Singer, Rachel Blossom Spellman, Jack Weinstein, and Lillian Wick. Is there anybody else whose name was not mentioned yet that you would like to add? Or at home in the chat, please. For all of them, we're about to recite the Mourner's Kaddish. It's on page 294 of your Siddur. Please, as you're able, please rise as we say this as a community. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, be'alma divrach hirotei, v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon u'vyomechon, u'v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'imru. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach, le'alam u'lamei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, shmei dekudesha b'richu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shlama Rabbah min Shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru. Amen. Zichronam livracha. May their memory be a blessing. Please have a seat. So already mentioned, thanks again to everybody who came today and also tuned in at home. Thanks for joining us. And of course, for everybody who made this service happen. Debbie on piano for beautifully accompanying us, as always. Our security, Sean Bethel, Mania Espinoza, keeping us safe outside. Sylvia Fredkin for announcements tonight. And also to Kat Ellis for helping us out with tech tonight. So appreciate it. And the Greenwoods, Howard and Ellis, also for ushering. Thank you. And we're going to be closing on this Shabbat, and we'll be asking so much for peace and for an end of war, which is an Israeli's tune, Shir LaShalom, a song for peace. And to remind ourselves we have an active part in bringing peace about. And this is something you can find in your book on page 354.
While you're going there, I just want to read for those who are online these incredibly powerful and words that truly have meaning tonight as we think about Ukraine. Let the sun rise and give morning light. The purest prayer will not bring us back. Him whose candle was snuffed out and was buried in the dust. A bitter cry won't wake him, won't bring him back. Nobody will return us from the dead dark pit. Here neither the victory cheer nor songs of praise will help. So sing only a song for peace. Do not whisper a prayer. Better sing a song for peace with a big shout. Let the sun penetrate through the flowers. Don't look backward. Forget those who walk away. Lift your eyes with hope, not through the rifle sights. Sing a song for love and not for wars. Don't say the day will come. Bring the day, because it is not a dream. And within all the city squares, cheer only for peace. Join with us. תנו לשמש לעלות, לבוקר להאיר, חזקה שבתפילות אותנו לא תחזיר. מי אשר כבה נרו ובעפר נטמן, בחימה לא יאירו, לא יחזירו לכאן. איש אותנו לא ישיב, מבור תחתית אפל, כן לא יועילו לו שירי הניצחון ולא שירי ההלל. על כן רק שירו שיר לשלום, אל תכחשו תפילה. מוטב תשירו שיר לשלום בצעקה גדולה. תנו לשמש לחדור מבעד לפרחים, אל תביטו לאחור, הניחו להולכים. שאו עיניים בתקווה, לא דרך כוונות, שירו שיר לאהבה ולא למלחמות. אל תגידו יום יבוא, הביאו את היום, כי לא חלום הוא בכל הכיכרות. הריעו לשלום, על כן רק שירו שיר לשלום, אל תלחשו תפילה. מוטב תשירו שיר לשלום בצעקה גדולה. על כן רק שירו שיר לשלום, אל תלחשו תפילה. מוטב השירו שיר לשלום בצעקה גדולה.
Shabbat Shalom,
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat of peace. One more thing before we leave, which is Kiddush and Motzi. And if you want to follow along with those, they're in your Siddur on page 5, beginning. And I just want to say thank you. We had some anonymous donors who donated new Kiddush cups for us, so thank you for that. It was a memory of an anniversary. And they came with some candlesticks as well, which didn't quite work out for our setup here, but we're also thankful for that. I'm sure they will be used in another setting. All right, if you want to please rise as we join together for Kiddush. Folks at home, if you want to get your Kiddush cups ready, now is the time as we join together.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddeshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu b'shabbat kodsho be'ahava u'ratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit, ki hu yom techila lemikrae kodesh, zecher letziat mitzrayim, ki banu achata ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha be'ahava u'ratzon hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-shabbat l'chaim.
Fine. And And for round 2, the Motzi, it's also on the back of your pamphlet. You want to get the blessing for that?
Join with us. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz b'te'avo. Shabbat shalom all.
Good meal, everybody.
A peaceful Shabbat.
For those who like, there's some challah on the bench.